Hey, this is Zach, and I'm here with Michael DeSanti, one of IIN's resident coaching experts, to discuss something extremely important for both new and experienced health coaches, and that's setting boundaries. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because health coaches have good intentions, which can sometimes get them into trouble when they go unchecked. It's the same as other helping professions like nurses and social workers who go into the field to help others and often end up doing it at the expense of themselves. In this desire to support people, they often put their needs second and jeopardize their own health and well-being, and this leads to burnout and makes them less effective in their work. Now, luckily, Michael has really gotten setting boundaries under control as he's built his coaching business and his ideal lifestyle alongside it. He's here with us today to discuss his experience and all that he's learned about the benefits of boundaries. Michael, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I think in the start of health coaches' careers, when they're just beginning, they can really struggle with this idea of setting boundaries. How do I do that? I'm curious, why is it important for health coaches to set boundaries at the outset of their career and take themselves seriously as a professional?
There's really two aspects of that I believe really strongly in. The first is coaching is still an emerging field. So a lot of the people that young coaches are going to coach, this may be their first time in a coaching relationship. So they're really going to be looking to the coach to establish the dynamic. So it's really important for the coach to really establish that dynamic right up front of what times will work, what times won't work, how much energy is going into it. And so really the coach is actually the one that's establishing the professionalism and the dynamic of that relationship. The other aspect is, a lot of times coaches have great intentions. They want to help everyone. They want to really be part of someone's life and part of someone's journey and improvement. But if you're doing it at the expense of yourself, you're really not valuable to your client. So boundaries are super important because they create that space, that safe space that's really serving both people in the dynamic and in the relationship.
I love that you brought up that point because I think sometimes people are afraid or hesitant to set boundaries because they think that it's going to make the client upset or it's going to be off-putting. But what I'm hearing from you is that when they come to that relationship, they actually find it reassuring. They're looking for that.
Yeah, because here's the thing is when the coach is taking their time, their love, their energy seriously, that will translate into the client. They're going to know that this is very special time. This is time that's for me, that's for my improvement. It's really important that, and this is a challenge that a lot of young coaches run into, is they want to be liked by their client rather than lead and guide their client. And those are two totally different ways of operating. So it's very important for the coach to really establish, this is the dynamic. And that when the answer really needs to be no for the coach has to say no. And offer solutions. That won't work, but this will. This time won't work, but this time will. And as we start to do that and negotiate and renegotiate, the coach is valuing their own time. They're valuing their own energy and they're valuing their own love that they're putting into their practice and into their craft. And that will always translate to the client.
Yeah, it translates through the work and then also models to the client, right? I'm giving you an example of what it's like to do this in your own life as well.
That's one of the things about coaching is coaching and mentoring. We've got to practice what we preach.
Yeah.
And if we don't, people are really perceptive.
Yeah.
They will pick up on little inconsistencies and little hypocrisies. So as a coach, if I'm practicing what I preach, I'm going to be very forthright with, this is what works for me, this is what I do in my life, this is what I found effective. But here's the thing, I'm speaking from my own experience that way. But if I'm asking someone or leading someone to prioritize their health and their well-being, and I'm not doing it personally, people will pick up on it. It becomes perceptive.
Yeah. Speaking of your own experience, have you ever had difficulties in your career with setting boundaries? Have you ever experienced a lack of boundaries? And what areas in your life did that impact?
This is interesting because the only time in my history that I've ever had complications with a client are the people that I've given discounts to. And I know this sounds strange, but as a coach, if you're discounting your service or your time or your value, that automatically translates to the client. The people that pay me in full, that pay me up front, that handle everything right away, that know the value, they are the ones that don't bother me. They do what they do, and they do what they're supposed to do. They follow their protocols. It's the people where I have gone out of my way with good intention to either discount service or readjust some of my time or face-to-face time with them. They're the ones that I've actually had the most amount of challenges with, and they're the ones that will tend to take advantage a little bit more than the other ones. But always remember, too, for the coaches, we're the ones that are establishing the value. We're the ones that are saying, this is what my time or my craft is worth. So as the coach, we are establishing that right off the bat. If we devalue it, the client's going to devalue it. So the people that, and this sometimes goes into money boundary, but the people that pay more attention. And the people that pay more attention get the best results. And so if we as coaches are devaluing our service, people aren't going to pay great attention. They don't have enough skin in the game, and then they're not going to get the results that both we and they want. And it's going to harm or devalue the results that they get.
And they're going to be more challenging.
And they're going to be more challenging. I don't know why that is, but it's in my history, the only people that I've ever had challenges with are the ones that I've extended my own boundaries for. And it's a learning experience for me to say, this is my service. This is what it costs. This is the time commitment. This is the financial commitment. I would rather a clear rejection. I would rather a clear no than a false lukewarm promise. So I would rather filter, those people out initially than spend 3 months or 1 year with them that's lukewarm.
Yeah.
I'd rather filter it out as a no.
Yeah, yeah.
Now the client's not going to know where that boundary is unless I establish
Right
it. The other way that shows up a lot, and that I've learned in my history, is being too flexible with time. When I was first starting out, I wanted to say yes to every potential client. I'd work on the weekends, I'd work in the evenings, and it started to burn me out a bit. And then I started getting resentful of what the craft that I was building. And when I started to really shrink down my time commitments and say, I only work from this time to this time, I don't work on the weekends, and you don't have access to me in between, that's when I felt rejuvenated, and I also felt that I was being the best version of myself for my clients. And initially it was hard to say, I'm sorry I don't work on Saturdays, I'm sorry I don't work in the evenings, but this will work. And what started to happen is, as the coach, I started to train my clients on how to be in relationship in this dynamic.
Yeah, yeah. So by setting boundaries, you were able to show up as your best self. You're able to bring your best energy to that relationship. Can you explore a little bit for us that relationship between boundaries and self-care? How do those two play together?
Boundaries are really primary. They're distinct and deliberate spaces that you're creating. And boundaries keep both parties safe. So with boundaries, it's like I'm giving you a roadmap into how to be in relationship with me. If you don't have a roadmap, you're not going to know when you're over the line, behind the line. You're not going to know really how to navigate our relationship together. And boundaries become almost like rooms inside your inner home. If you don't have those rooms established, like rooms for self-care, rooms for your time, room for your own personal, physical, mental well-being, then people are going to track mud throughout your whole home. They're not, and they won't even know. They won't know they're over the line. They won't know that they're taking advantage of your time or your energy or your love. They just won't know because you haven't established that roadmap or that guideline with them. So when we do establish roadmaps, when we do establish blueprints with our clients and with each other, people know how to navigate, within my life. They know how to navigate within my time. But boundaries will keep both or all parties safe and protected.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love to know, what are some of the boundaries that you set for yourself in your own coaching practice and your own coaching career right now, and how have they evolved over time?
I was speaking a little earlier about, I used to work or do anything that was convenient for the client. So that sometimes meant working evenings or working weekends. Now I don't do that. Now this is when I start. These are my available hours, and this is when I end, and I don't work after that. A big thing for me has been every Monday morning, my first call is with my assistant, 8:30 in the morning, Monday morning, because it sets the guideline for the week up. We look at my schedule, and we make sure that anything I need to know or anything that I need to relay to her. But one of the things that I've done is she knows that every day, no matter where it is, that 2 hours is always blocked. So that I always have 2 hours blocked, and that's the time that I go to the gym, that's the time I take care of myself, that's the time I take a break. Sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes it's midday, sometimes it's the afternoon. But my assistant knows that every day there has to be at least a 2-hour block. And she knows not to book anything in between that, because that's my time to get to the gym. It's my time to take a break and make sure that I'm practicing what I preach and practicing my self-care.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that as well. What are some of your go-to self-care practices? And similarly, this 2-hour block you're talking about, it sounds like it's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that is there no matter what. And I'm wondering, what are some of the other non-negotiables for you?
So the gym is non-negotiable. And time outside every day is non-negotiable. So I always love to be outside. I like to keep my phone at home. For me, getting out for a walk or taking our dog out for a walk, that's huge for me. It helps me decompress. It helps me check out a little bit from the day and from in between clients. Other non-negotiables are, the way I eat, eating healthy, making sure that I'm nourished, that my wife is nourished. Those are really, really important to me. So, no fast food, no, let me just grab this along the way. Very, very non-negotiable. And I have a lot of rules set around the way that I eat, the way that my family eats. And then, just time to pause each day. Sometimes it's reading, sometimes it's, like I said, being outside, and typically the gym. Those are my daily non-negotiables.
What advice would you give to IIN students and particularly new health coaches when it comes to setting boundaries and embracing self-care?
So, I said it earlier, is practice what you preach.
Yeah.
And that means that we've got to make ourselves, our physical health, our mental health, our spiritual and emotional health priority. Now that's going to look different for everyone. So don't think, your way needs to look like my way, or you need to adjust it to do what I'm doing. I have different considerations. I have different circumstances. I'm a little further along in the game, especially from a new coach. But you've got to see and identify for you, like what is priority for you? What does that look like? How does that look like time-wise? And how does that look about carving out what's valuable for you? Now make that the priority, make that primary, and then build your coaching business, build your practice around it. Not at its sacrifice, not at its behest.
Yes.
That has to be built in primary.
Yes, yes. I see that so often where it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Whatever the client needs, whatever needs to be done, and then I put myself wherever I can fit myself.
Yeah.
I'm hearing the opposite from you, right? You prioritize all these things that keep you healthy and well, that allow you to be a better coach, and then you build your practice around that.
That's the long-term sustainable way of doing it.
Yeah.
I've tried it the other way. It doesn't work. And then what happens is we'll get burnt out. We'll become resentful.
Yeah.
Because always remember too is we're spending time with them. We're intrusive in their lives, but they're also intrusive in our lives too. And it's a mutual agreed upon relationship. But that's for the coach to establish that this is the win-win. There's always a win-win to create, but we have to be very intentional about that. We've got to make our self-care a priority. And like I said before, it'll translate. It'll translate into the way you coach them. It'll translate into mutual respect. That will translate. And if you are doing the opposite, and you're devaluing your time, that will also translate as well.
Yeah.
And so it's really, really critical for young coaches, especially right off the bat, establish that this is a priority, establish that this is valuable, and keep building it. You keep building your practice that way.
Yeah.
And then you just keep building upon it.
Yep. But that's the foundation.
It starts with you valuing your time first. It starts with the coach valuing their craft, their time, all that they've learned, all that they've practiced, and that'll grow over time. But it has to grow from a place of value.
There you go. Yeah. This is what I needed to hear when I began coaching. So I appreciate you being here. I appreciate all the insight and all of the lessons from your experiences. I know some of them were hard won, and just thank you for sharing the time with us and for being here.
It's my pleasure.